Recording in progress.
Insert 36-minute crash out here.
36-minute crash out.
Yeah, over my own inability to remember Sakata Kintoki.
Oh God,
Sorry,
that.
Sasaki Kojiro. Sorry, Sakamoto Ryoma.
No, you had it right the second time.
I I know. That was the joke. It was the joke.
Look, I saw that live.
A lot of people did.
That was probably the most hilarious point that you've ever had streaming was just like you fully crashing out over not being able to remember the name of this fucking like fate stay night servant.
Because I knew he was Sakata Ryoma.
Ah, Seki's Red Shimousa, guys. So Seki, how you feeling about that FGO gotcha?
Fantastic, Knick
I
Knack. Why
figured
do
you would
you
be.
ask? I just got me a Zhuge Liang.
I'm so happy you did. It's gonna make.
He's also, I don't know if you caught the message last night, but I did fully level him finally.
Yes, I did see that,
Yeah,
which is great. That means he's pretty much usable for what you need him to be used for right now.
and I'm almost fully leveled on Ashi Domon.
Yes. Now if you just got to get finish up if you want your account like actually able to farm things and you not just needing to be able to like tap buster cards for 10 rounds until you finally win. You might be able to start the return farming things if you can get Melusine's skills leveled.
Oh yeah, my summer Melusine.
Because she's probably not going to need two Castorias to pull off the crazy arts looping thing, so long as you have an auxiliary battery like Zuge. So yeah, I'll show you how to do that once you have Melusine done though.
I'll tackle looking at her skill level ups when I get to making the spreadsheet.
So yeah, that's like the only real gotcha thing that's happened since then for you because you haven't done that much roll. Like you rolled Zuge, but it wasn't that many courts, all things considered.
But to be fair, when I rolled Zuge, I also got Theseus and was it Tenochtitlan?
Um, Kinda, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. We haven't covered that server yet, but I know I got them. So like it wasn't a bad set of like rolls coming out, you know? It wasn't as if I just got Juge and nothing else.
It was hilarious to watch though, because like in real time, like you got like three Caesars very early on, and it's like,
I was like, oh
this is
no.
how today is going.
Oh no. Yeah. I sense bad omens. And now I have you know what the irony is? You probably aren't gonna be able to start the Salem recording asking me the same question. Because I don't have another target before I'm scheduled to finish Salem or Christmas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe the friend point gotcha will be funny.
Oh, is that coming this month?
Oh, I don't know. Probably
Oh,
not. That's right. You're trying to aim for the for Mary
yeah.
Anning.
Yeah, I want Anning. But I have an ungodly amount of friend points saved up. I have something like 700 friend point summons available to me right now. So, I have been saving since Annie.
That said, so yeah, this is probably the last time we're like seriously talking with the gotcha before the
Two.
end of part
Or yeah,
1.5 here.
part 1.5. I'm sure we'll
Um,
talk about it again at the end of part 1.5 after we see if I got Skahak Ashvatthama.
yeah, going to be a very interesting discussion on the Anastasia Part One prologue, which I'm probably going to have you do those together because Part One
Yeah.
prologue's short, or Part Two prologue. But Shimosa's as always, we're going to start here with the gameplay differences because there are some unique gameplay elements to Shimosa. I know Seki's got like some visceral reactions to. There is a lot of gameplay wise that like obviously it's mostly like the moment to moment it's mostly the same as our previous chapters.
It's the
Most bosses have
battles.
break
It's the
bars.
spirit sword master battles.
Yeah, like, there's not
Yeah.
much of a functional difference between say um let's say the big boss fight that's the like some of the Orochi fights. There's not much of a difference between them if they have a break bar and something like Avenger of Shinjuku.
Hmm.
But this chapter I would say is was quite a bit harder, especially at release, than Shinjuku and Agartha were. And there's also the issue of the frequency of the forced Musashi support fights, if not outright forcing you to have her in your front line uh, um, as while you do a fight that's not always advantageous to Musashi.
Yeah.
How are you feeling
Um,
about those particular the difficulty in the Musashi forcing?
well, in general, I'm not a fan of force support fights. I've had to do them before, and I don't like them, right? And a lot of the reason why I don't like them is because Um, they're very often the reason why you have to do the forced servants is because you don't have that servant and they want that servant for some sort of reason. And look, I don't have the servant, so I don't know how they're used, and I don't. And especially with the Musashi ones, because we started with her being very low leveled at the beginning, and she kind of like leveled up throughout the chapter. Like by the final fight, I was able to use like all three skills. But I think for every single fight except for the last one that I was forced to use her in, I only had access to two skills. Um,
Which doesn't help when the second like big boss fight is a frickin' archer.
yeah. Um, so like it wasn't necessary. It was annoying more so than irritating because those are different things. It was annoying to have to use her, but at least when she was required, but not as the only servant, if I had one of the uniforms on, I could just swap her to the back. And the only problem with that is I think it provided me with a unfortunate look at how actually non-functional my current team setup is. Not to say that any of my servants are bad, right? But I don't have any of them fully skill leveled except for Luvia. And besides Koyan and Ku working relatively well together, but not really fantastically together, I don't have any sort of team cohesion in the five servants that I currently have on my main setup, right? It's like Mash brings up the back just because people tell me to keep putting her there. And she is useful, don't get me wrong, but like up till now I've been able to largely rely on not needing her. And so like I'm not super great at timing her or like figuring out when I need to use which of her abilities. And I mean like yeah, it was a joke. I was like the girls got my back, but like in all seriousness, Summer Melusine and Estrella together is not necessarily the most productive team. They both only work because I have them leveled up, and I have Estrella to 10, 10, 10, and I have Melusine's
Well,
skills at least somewhat leveled.
I'll say there is something to why the girls have my back has kind of worked outside of like the much harder content in Shimousa. And that's because the rulers have class resistance against everything, and then you have Mash
Yeah,
back there as well, increasing their defenses. So they're
yeah,
taking like nothing in damage normally. But when you get into
exactly.
these harder boss fights, they don't have a lot that's increasing their attack output. So while nothing's doing anything to you, you're
Hmm.
doing next to nothing to these bosses outside of when Luvia's skills are all proc. Because Melusine is
Yeah.
a servant built for farming, not for boss fights.
Yeah. And so like I don't know. I think the most annoying part of having to put her in my normal team setup, right, when I'm not using her on her own in forced fights, the most annoying thing was it becomes very obvious then how much I'm relying on Coulter to just hit things really hard, really fast,
Hmm.
and then having essentially stall servants in my back line in the hopes that I will do just that tiny percentage more damage to the enemy than the enemy will do to me within 22 turns or so, right? Because I did have a fight that went like 22 turns in the back half of the chapter. Um, and then when it was like Musashi only, that was irritating. Um, Mostly because I'm gonna be honest, and maybe this is just me, but I feel like using Musashi only, you really have to rely on luck and a general knowledge of how the enemy is gonna behave, including like any special things that they're gonna drop on you. And I don't have that general knowledge of how an enemy is gonna drop things on me. Um, and I don't seem to have very good luck with getting crits in general most of the time.
Look, I can tell you, there are fights where I'd agree with that, where it's like you should use the single servant, and it's like okay, I can use the single servant, but it's like 80% luck how I'm whether or not I'm going to win this.
Mhm.
None of the Force Musashi fights are like that. The early ones are very, very, very built to be just. They're going to take a while. And it's like this like the early ones are like this is taking forever because I'm using a single target servant to fight a wave of piss weak enemies, but I can only attack one of them at once. I'm
Mhm.
100% with you there on as far as
Yeah.
that feeling slow. But like that last Sasaki Kojiro fight, the
Oh
literal
yeah. No, but that's once again that's it is a combination of both luck and knowledge of the servant because that was the first one that I had all three skills from her. And if I'd popped, I think it was if I'd popped her skills or one of my backup bonuses, I wouldn't have died. I would have beaten him out that next round.
all you had to do is just not
Yeah.
drop the invincibility
Yeah.
until he dropped his NP. And that's just kind of a thing you would do normally
Yeah.
in gameplay anyways. I think at that point you were almost done and you wanted to be done.
Yeah, yeah.
So you weren't necessarily thinking clearly about that fight. But I don't
Well, and I don't often, well, because for pretty much all of part 1, right? And large parts of part 1.5 so far, I have not I have not had access to a lot of servants with invulnerability skills, and I realized that or costumes that provide that for myself, you know? Like I don't have a main frontline servant who has invulnerability that I get to use very frequently. And a lot of the servants I borrow don't have that, so invulnerability is never like my first thought per se. For me, that's like the last resort when mash pops up in my back line, you know?
see. And here's the thing: I think in these early parts, you'd probably benefit more from you'd probably benefit a lot more from not leaning on Coulter nearly as much on your front line. Coulter himself is actually built to be more of a back line, like this servant's my last servant. I'm going to damage rush the rest of this like last bar or so. And he has enough survivability to take one or two NPs in a few rounds without any worry of dying. Um, Whereas in the you could tell you don't use Mash very often, and you only really know how to increase defenses with her because there's a couple times when you're fighting servants that are single target, you drop Mash's invincibility on the servant you want to survive when you could have saved the entire line by dropping the invincibility on Mash herself and combining that with her the skill that draws the enemy's attacks towards her, so that
Yeah,
they're only attacking her.
but that requires on me knowing or remembering if the servant has a single target or AoE.
Well, sometimes you'd been hit by the NP before up to that point.
Eh,
And usually, especially because Mash is coming out, who's in your back line at that point. Also, you have a leg up of everyone else because you have chat there.
I do. Chat's very helpful.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I'm also not too prissy about using command spells or crystallized lore if I need to get through something at this point, or not crystallized lore, whatever they're called,
I was
to
gonna
get
say
through something at this point.
you need to add at this point because this is like
Yeah,
the first time you've been like
yeah.
pretty
Well,
liberal with revives this entire
first,
time you've played.
first of all, I didn't know what those blue balls were until Seraph, and I couldn't use them in Seraph, if you remember.
Yeah.
So now that I know that they're there and I have them, I might as well use them because they don't cost me Saint Quartz. And two, I still hesitate to use command spells for a revive because it's three. And that feels like, and like if I know I'm going to be playing more that day, and if I know I'm not at the climax fight of a chapter, I hesitate to use the command spells because I'm like, what if I need them for the climax fight? And then, you know, and
Yeah.
that's just been how I've played the game all the way through so far. Um, because I refuse to revive using Saint Quartz, and up till kind of I up till I got access to those blue ball things. Saint Quartz was my option besides command spells, and I was like, well, I'm not using Saint Quartz because I'm saving.
Yeah, it's fair. That's fair.
I'm gonna keep using those balls as long as I have them.
Well, they're those ball like the blue stones, the ley line stones.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, they are on a time limit. They only
yeah,
appear during campaigns where the game wants you to be catching up.
yeah.
Uh,
So guess what that means I'm gonna use them for? Salem!
yes, I will say though, it's pretty like chat can tell you this. Like, and they've seen me do it. These stones, they're technically time limited, but it feels like we only ever go like at most 1 month without them at any given time. They really like to bring them back as often as they can.
And look, I get that they're a get out of jail free card essentially, but like I think I used them 3 times in Shimousa. I did 3 continuations with them.
Hmm.
Um, and like of those 3 continuations, at least 2 of them I used just, and it was in the latter bit of the chapter where I was streaming it all together, where I literally was sitting there and I was like, okay, I see where I went wrong. I could refight this and win like very easily, but I don't want to because I see what I did wrong. And I don't, and what I did wrong would not have significantly shortened the fight. Like that 22 turn fight, right? Like what I did wrong in that fight, like would not have significantly shortened how long it took me to beat that fight. I would have still had like a knockdown drag out, like probably 15 turns or so. And I was like, I'm just not going to play 15 turns through again because I dropped my NP at the wrong time, you know? Like I didn't see that gold evade go up on the servant. Cuz like those indicators are so small on the screen and like I know that I have like the bigger screen up in front of me, but I am a lot of the time looking at my phone screen, you know?
Well, it's just easy to miss when they drop a like an evade and you're like, oh, the fight's almost done.
Yeah.
NP, 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 and it's almost like
Yeah.
you know you should be checking every round, but you
Yeah,
don't
I
always
don't.
catch it.
No.
And trust me,
Um,
like if it makes you feel any better, that's not just you. That's a common phenomena. That's to the point where there is an official piece of FGO animated media, like an actual animated gag series that pokes fun at people that have done that.
yeah. So it's like a, you know, and like for example, that last Musashi fight against Kojiro, right? I know where I went wrong when I lost the fight. I know what I did incorrectly. I was not going to replay that at that point. You know, I if I can't figure out what I've done wrong, right? Or if I haven't like built a team that can beat a fight, then I'll replay it if I feel like it's of value. But if I know what I've done wrong, I don't really want to replay it necessarily.
The only fight where I think you were fully outmatched and you just bluestone damage, honestly, I think is when you probably want to use the bluestones the
Yeah.
most if you're trying to make forward progression for a stream, was the
Mhm.
Yagyu fight.
Yeah.
And I'm 90% sure I had
The
problems on that fight on my
debuffs.
JP as well. It's the
Oh,
debuffs, the reduction in damage that he
yeah.
takes.
Because the
It's
thing
not
is, no, go ahead.
it's not a pretty fight if you're not prepared for it.
And the thing is, I was not I like I Chad had been saying that he debuffed, but I didn't realize he debuffed that much. And given that I don't think Koyan and Ku lasted very long on the front because they're both kind of glass cannons, to be honest, on my
Hmm.
team. And then like you know, like we said before, a fucking Estrella and Melusine can like tank it out for a long time, but they're also not doing damage. Like it's just not in any significant way. And yeah, I don't know. By the time I got to that fight in stream, um I was pretty dedicated to wanting to get Shimousa finished at that
Yeah.
point. And I was like, you know what? I'm sure that if I like got chat's help and maybe, you know, like rebuilt a team, picked different people for my inventory, tried to do something clever, we probably could get through this, but
Whereas
I don't think it was really worth it in that case.
wasn't it the Amakusa fight where you were literally like in triple digit health numbers by the time you had to use that bluestone?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I was like, one incorrect skill deployment would have fixed this, you know?
Or not even that. Like the
Yeah.
game literally. So this is a thing in turn-based games where you have high and low roll damage
Yeah.
because it does like the D&D thing of rolling how much damage you do in a
Yeah.
range. If you had just had a higher roll on your damage and any one attack, you would have
Yeah.
won that.
I was like, I'm not replaying this just for that, you know?
Look, that's kind of the two circumstances I use Bluestones is when I'm like, oh, I won this fight. I just got RNG'd to death, or I made one tiny ass mistake that could have changed this. and this I don't want to redo this right from scratch, um, or the opposite end of that. Jesus Christ, my account is not equipped for this fight. I am not staying on this fight for the next 2 weeks while I try to level something to be able to take it on. I just don't have the ability to take it.
Yeah. And no, for my goal being to kind of catch up to FGO as fast as I can while still engaging in the story, it doesn't make sense for me to get myself stuck on any particular fights
We're not
with my current account.
we're not that kind of content creator, guys.
No.
We don't we suck at the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Like genuinely. And like it's not to say that I'm not learning, but obviously my learning is coming at a relatively slow rate, and part of that's because I'm not playing the game like dedicatedly in off time, you know? When there's not an event going on. And that's not to say that I don't like the game, but I'm also just not much of a phone game gotcha person in my off time. Like I struggle to do that sort of thing unless it's like yeah, like I didn't mind with the lotto event, but like with the lotto event, I just pop anime on TV and tap on my screen, you know? It didn't matter. Um,
Look, I get it. I'm not great at like you. I've shown chat how far my backlog is on my interludes and rank ups. I don't do a lot of grinding on the daily or weekly farming quests that are open. I tend to just play FGO when there's a new story chapter or when I'm playing an event.
yeah. All that is to say, I was annoyed and irritated by the forced Musashi fights. They weren't the worst thing in the world. Um, I didn't love how many there were. But you know,
Look,
it's fine.
it's a common problem people have with this chapter on a gameplay level, and it's gonna get better before it gets significantly worse.
Hmm.
Like it's gonna be better for like the next year of your streams. And then suddenly around the end of the Lost Belt arc, there's just gonna be like, why can I never use my full team on a single node? That becomes a bit of a problem for a while.
Yeah.
Um, I guess here's another element of the gameplay here that I'm also curious about. We touched on it a bit with the Bluestone discussion. Did the difficulty of some of these fights throw you off at all?
No,
Okay.
not after Agartha. Not after the actual struggle I had at the end of Agartha with that one fucking fight. No.
Whereas, because that
Cuz
I
cuz unlike that one fight in Agartha, right, where like you had to like Avenger like where you basically had to have like the right servant with the right skills popped at the right time with the right supports, you know, and you still struggled. Um in every single fight in this chapter, I could see the way out. Like, even if I wasn't winning in the fight, like, I can see how you could beat these, like, in theory. Just, I don't have the best team for it, you know?
I think there's a huge difference between the way Shimousa handles its fights versus the way that last fight in Agartha handled it. That last fight in Agartha, I actually don't think is that hard. It's just very gimmicky, and your account could have probably handled it. You just didn't know what servants to use for that because it's literally just a stall out until the final until you've hit that 10th round, and
Hmm.
then you throw your damage down. Which, if you don't know how to do that, it makes the fight significantly worse than it actually is. But it's also like that level of gimmickiness without giving you the best indication of how long you're going to be waiting or what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
It's not
Whereas,
fun.
whereas in Shimosa, you're just fighting to win, you know? Like yeah, you're fighting against these heroic spirit sword masters and they have a bunch of like benefits to them, but you're not fighting to some weird arbitrary conclusion of like gimmick. You're just fighting.
Hmm.
And I much prefer that in all situations. I prefer going into the fight and just knowing that you have to win it. You know, not that there's
Yeah.
some stupid condition.
Like I did with Seraph, I'm gonna go into like what the original context on the difficulty was here because I do think this chapter for the longest time was one of the more difficult FGO chapters, and that's because you'll notice like there are plenty of fights, especially when you get into like Archer of the Inferno and Assassin of Paraiso. Those two fights in particular, like the entire gimmick is I'm just going to debuff the shit out of you, and you also got that in Yagyu,
Mhm.
and in the like is either damage or you just can't do anything because the game is really relying on you to have something that cleanses debuffs at the time I saw when I saw this chapter launch, the general sentiment was these fights are not designed for anyone who didn't pull Jean or doesn't have a very similar servant level because she was one of the few servants that could cleanse your debuffs like that without using your mystic code.
Mhm.
So it very much so was a this chapter is relying on you to have very specific servants for these fights. And gameplay wise, it very much feels like an optional challenge chapter. That doesn't necessarily come through these days because a lot more of our servant kits are well balanced. I think doesn't Estrella have a debuff clear or a debuff immunity on her or something like that?
I don't know.
I'd have to
I
take a.
actually, here's the thing. I love Estrella. I don't know what the fuck her skills do. I just prop all three at once when they're ready.
You're gonna love when skills come around. They're like, this skill does all these cool things, kills you the next round.
Let me just. I'm gonna check Estrella's skills.
See, that's step one
She's
to.
got something to. I know she's got a defense up and an arts up, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
I just
She's
don't
got a
know
really
what
well balanced kit.
I just don't know what her third skill is. I thought it was something related to sea stars.
I think you're right there. I think you're right. I don't.
Yeah, I
She
don't think
probably
she
doesn't have a debuff
debuffs.
cleanse. I
Yeah,
think you had to rely wholly on
Mystic
your
Code.
Mystic Code.
Yeah, because I don't
Um,
have another debuff cleanse. I don't think. Not that I use.
but just a lot more servants are built to push through this wall, whereas at the time our only support was Merlin and Zuge and Tamamo.
Hmm.
None of who have a debuff cleanse on them or a debuff immune on them.
And I didn't have Zuge at the time. And I have a Tamamo, and I don't have a Merlin.
You don't even have the right Tamamo. You have Cat and
Oh yeah, that's
Koyanskaya.
right. Yeah, I don't have Tamamo.
And that's probably why you struggled some of the harder fights because these fights are built to be like, no, you need these like high defensive servants to win this fight.
Hmm.
And you don't, your team's not very defensive.
Yep. Nope. No debuff clears on Estrella.
Okay, okay. I was wrong about that one then. So yeah, that's kind of where the original chapter said. Obviously, it's power crept to the point where it's only kind of tough now.
Hmm.
But I was just curious to like what you felt like your experience was here. So it's interesting. You know, I guess even watching the
Look,
stream, it didn't look like you're having that much difficulty until
no.
towards the end.
No. For the most part, Shimousa was a relatively easy chapter for me, at least in terms of like not increasing my level of like frustration and anger. Like when I failed, and there were a couple times where I was like, ah, okay, let me replay that or something, I think. But like
Was it Archer of Inferno you got stuck on for a fair while?
I think it might have been. I I think I only allowed myself to get stuck on a fight once, and after that I just used continue stones. Um, yeah, something like that. Um, but yeah, no. I don't think that the fights were too bad, to be honest. And I'm sure part of that is because my team is broken compared to like broken in different ways than what they wanted you to take in, if that makes sense. Um, I think I could say that fairly, given that I've got, Estrella all leveled up. And to be fair, my Melusine skills are not at the bottom. I've gotten them up a fair bit.
Oh yeah, I think
Um,
Melusine's issue is just that she's not built for farming and boss, or she's
exactly.
built for farming, not boss fights. So when she's coming out at
Exactly.
the end, it's a little bit like, well, she's just there because she's a ruler.
Yeah, and I want to bond her, so I was trying to keep her in my team.
Yeah.
I'll probably swap her out now, for Juge. Um, I attempted to swap someone else out for Ashia Domon so I can start bonding him now that I have him leveled. Um,
Well, I think you probably want to have two
yeah.
setups. One that's just a wave clear and one that's to fight bosses. And then you can shuffle things around from there. Because here's the thing, most of the story fights, you kind of just need to be wave clearing. That's like you were getting irritated at some of those fights too. I noticed in stream. Not because they were hard, but because they were just taking a lot of rounds for what amounted to just tapping Buster for like 15 minutes.
Well, I think the one that I got most irritated when was the one that I was forced to use Musashi and there were like 15 enemies.
Yeah, but like even
Because I could never move on from the enemy I was hitting.
Juge is just going to make it significantly easier to wave clear, and you have wave clearing servants that are going to be compatible with
Yeah.
Zufu, Juge, and if you borrow it, like a Castoria is probably going to be
Yeah.
like your. I just want to get like basically skip
No,
this
I
fight.
I understand that. I understand
Yeah,
that. I think we could probably move on from the way that I played the game in Shimosa and maybe talk about the story now.
we can get into the story.
No, it's just because like the last 15 minutes has come down to yes, wave clearing team versus boss team. You should have both, and I don't have both currently.
Look, you have the pieces of both now. That's why I'm bringing it up so much. You have the pieces of both. You didn't when you were playing a good chunk of this chapter.
I didn't get Juge till after I was done playing the chapter.
Yeah, he was the final piece of Exodia to getting you to an actually being able to do wave clearing stuff.
You're just making me want to use him less.
Look, the last my last comment on that to make you want to use him as little as possible. There is a genuine animation FGO skit about how overworked Zhuge is and how he's going on strike because he is beaten, battered with no time off. So yeah, we should talk about Shimosa's story.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
really should talk about Shimosa's story.
yeah,
I think we should talk about Shimosa's story.
yeah,
We
yeah.
we
Do
we
you?
we Shimosa's story is something we should definitely talk about it. You know, right? Yeah, we should talk about Shimosa's story.
Uh,
Hang on, we need a flashback about why we should talk about Shimosa's story.
Why? It feels like such a fever dream.
Sorry, even I have to poke a little fun at the fact that Shimosa does the very classic visual novel thing at this point of let's explain everything thrice for the people in the back. Seki is about over that trope because Seki is
I
a very attentive reader normally.
I hate it with a burning passion because, in my opinion, this presumes a lack of media literacy on the part of the reader that the writer is assuming.
Have you met the Fate
Um,
fan base?
I would argue that the Fate fan base I've read is actually pretty damn good readers and doesn't need it in triplicate signed on a charcoal copy.
See, you've never been on Reddit or Twitter's Fate
Yeah,
news.
I don't go on Reddit and Twitter. I keep myself away from those places. Our fans on the YouTube channel are what I interact with. And arguably they're better at reading than I am, given how
Not,
often they read the skills of the servants that I'm using before I do.
I just think they have a better attention span than you do.
Oh man, I hate the like I don't there was that moment where Sherlock was explaining what he thought was happening, and I was it a canon event that no matter which of the two answers I picked he was going to repeat the entire thing afterwards a second time, or did I actually just pick the wrong option of my two dialogue choices?
No, you just picked the wrong option because there are dialogue choices
Ah!
that are there for the. There's parts in FGO that are like, hey, this thing is technical because that was technically lore you could have gotten by just playing that Musashi trial quest that I had you play. That was literally just a repetition because that quest was not accessible when Shimosa chapter came out anymore. So they're like, okay, not everyone played this. We need a way to drop this lore. Sherlock Holmes. Give them the option, and you pick the option to have the war redumped on you. And there's other
Ah!
options you'll need to pay attention for like that because there are times where it's like, hey, do people actually know this historical and mythological story? Well, we can have the characters explain it to them in game because they do need to know it for this story. So we'll give them the option of, hey, do you know about this historical character? No. Yes, I grew up with these stories.
Ah!
Unfortunately, you picked the answer that was there for people that needed it again. I'll be honest, that was one of your funnier crash outs.
I don't like that. I'm not a fan.
I think was that one of the brownies I made?
Yeah.
What do you think of them?
Too many chocolate chips for me.
Thank you. That recipe had so much chocolate. Like I was looking at like how much chocolate I was putting in it, and I'm like, "You're calling for this much chocolate? Jesus Christ, this is diabetes in a cake."
I feel like the only problem I have with these is it feels like I'm not getting any actual brownie because every time I take a bite, it's just whole chocolate chip chunks.
Like if you like this, like the recipe I used, if you like sweets, like really sweet chocolate, it's great. There were some people in the
Hmm.
office that loved those brownies, and I brought them for them.
Hmm.
Uh, my opinion, I share with my parents, and you probably don't share this because you don't like this kind of brownie as much, but I do. This would have benefited from having nuts in it to kind of break apart that chocolatey bit a bit more.
Whereas I think my solution is if you just cut out the whole chocolate chips that went into it, I think this would have been fine.
I think it just needed a little saltiness to cut into the sweetness.
Hmm.
But this is not an off the shelf on the brownie recipe Nick Knack found online. Uh, so yeah, I 100% get your crash outs over things being re-explained to you because I've seen that happen not just in Fate, but elsewhere. It's one of those, who are we writing for? Are you writing for media literate people who got it the first time? Or are you writing it for general audiences that
Look,
are on TikTok at the same time this is being read?
look, as much as it has become a joke that Seki doesn't read, arguably I am a very good and attentive reader. I typically don't need any level of repetition to remember things I've read, not just like in the immediate aftermath, but for years after. I'm I think arguably I probably have the best reading retention out of everyone we know, just in terms of remembering afterwards. And that's what makes it so much more frustrating for me because I read it once. I've got it. I don't need it again. But to be forced to do it again because I'm reading out loud on a stream is incredibly frustrating. It's enraging because and it also like I understand that like reading literacy is something that like arguably is actually going downhill with attention spans in the modern day. And I get that, right? And for all the jokes like Seki doesn't read, Seki's always on TikTok. I read in everyday life and I don't have a problem with attention span if there's something that I actually care about, you know? Like if I'm reading a book, I open it and I read it. I don't open it, read two chapters and then go to TikTok. Um, like that I don't have that short of an attention span, like in general. And it's both irritating to me to have to reread over those bits of like re-explained lore because I got it already. And also it makes there's a level of like where like I acknowledge that I know, right, that there is a problem with reading literacy and attention spans, and it makes me upset for humanity in an aggressive way because I don't like we arguably have a culture and a school system that should enable people if they pay attention in class and learn to read and listen to someone telling them about, reading literacy. We and and a school system that can insist on that, right? Like, and we don't have a school system in the US in a lot of places that can insist on students learning that, right? Like, we have a lot of like, no child left behind, like, let them keep going, let them keep going. It doesn't matter if they fail, keep moving them up. And it makes me mad because I don't think this should be a problem in 2025. I genuinely don't think that we shouldn't have to be worried about reading literacy and attention spans in 2025, where arguably the ability to read is something that everyone should just have at this point. And I understand logically, like I get why we don't and why we have these issues, but it makes me upset on behalf of people that it happens, which adds to my irritation.
Well, I will provide some pushback to the thesis you just put forward. Not anything to do with the actual chapter itself, but remember, this is a Japanese work written for Japanese audiences. While it is true that this had to be retranslated to English, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that the reiteration was part of the original text. So like there were some criticisms of the American school system there, and I get it. I understand the frustration that there was a broader point, but I do want to put it out there. It's not necessarily wholly something that's I don't want to say not relevant, but not FGO is not necessarily the only case example we would want to use for that because it is a Japanese work for Japanese school systems, and we don't have any experience with that.
True, but I would also make the argument that reading literacy is becoming a problem worldwide. I genuinely think that it has become a problem all over the world. That there and it's not. I don't think it's any one specific thing. I just think that people are in general getting worse and worse at reading things and understanding them.
Well, the ability to read words on the page is different than the actual ability to read a book.
Hmm. Yeah. And
Um,
I think we're not teaching people to read books anymore the way that we should be in general. Because this is not just a problem in the US.
but I'll put this out there for Shimousa and FGO as a whole. Fate, it's easy to forget that Fate is almost a sci-fi series, weirdly, with how much it's like it really explores its mechanics and its lore, which is great and all. It's great for wiki diving, and I do a lot in Seki Reacts to really push, make sure Seki is like I because I that's where Seki gets like is learning the majority of this is not from the actual text of the work. It's when I'm like the first time she's hearing about a lot of this is when I'm like, hey, this is relevant to the servant we're covering. So then she's reading it in the text of the work. And then they re-explain it because this is real high concept stuff that people are not getting necessarily. And then you reiterate again, and then oh, there's a little wrinkle. We're gonna go over it again. I have a feel like I could be wrong here, Seki, but do you have very similar problems with sci-fi works as they try to explain the science and mechanics of their world when they do that kind of shit?
Well, first of all, I don't really read sci-fi. For the general purpose that my brain likes to seek out the logicality in it, and then when there's issues with how something actually works in terms of like physics and logic, which are generally important things in science fucking fiction, my brain goes, no, that's not how that works. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. So in general, I don't tend to read a lot of science fiction, but I will say most of the science fiction I've read does not have that issue. And maybe that's just because I've read a very select collection of science fiction. But I generally don't find the science fiction novels I'm reading to be re-explaining themselves 14 times. I'm gonna exclude Dune from that.
That's kind of what I'm going for,
I'm gonna
though. Like
exclude,
high world
yeah,
building science fiction.
but but Dune is an outlier in science fiction. I think Dune in terms of story aligns more with Star Wars than it does with something like Annihilation. Um,
I mean, any sci-fi work that's not literally just trying to lean on um, the audience's existing understandings, it's gonna have to sit there and be like, this is how the world works, and this is how you need to suspend your disbelief as to why this is how the world works. Obviously, that's very simple. That's simplifying it a lot, but like, let's be honest here. If you were to cut out all of the exposition on what's going on in FGO, it's nonsense. It's fucking nonsense. It only works when you actually start saying, okay,
I'm not saying you have to cut out the exposition. I'm just saying that I shouldn't have to hear the same explanation twice in the same cutscene from two different people.
okay, but now we're not even talking about media. Like this isn't even just like, oh, you didn't catch this character bit. You need to have this character interaction spelled out for you a second. This is like, oh, yeah, this is actually something people are less likely to catch on their first read through because it's all bullshit, and we're trying to mask the fact that it is bullshit by giving it a lot of rules. Like that's my opinion on where FGO's like wordiness or Fate's wordiness problem in general is coming from, is that it does need to establish its rules and it does need to make
Oh,
sure people understand. It's just what's the balance on that? And I don't know that we always
perhaps
have the right balance of it.
perhaps that's your argument on FGO in general. Explaining the way that what's happening is happening was not the problem with wordiness in fucking Shimousa. Like, on a greater scale, maybe. I can't judge that yet. The actual wordiness in Shimosa did not come from trying to understand what was going on, because we only had to interact with fucking Da Vinci and Sherlock once. I can excuse one long cutscene. The wordiness came from the sheer amount of talking. Oh my God. And talking from characters that we're not even seeing on screen. Oh my God. And then Miyamoto Musashi goes up and has a no battle node where she's just talking to the fucking sky, labeled as Onui and Tasuke, for 15 minutes. Jesus. And yes, it was very touching. It was very emotional. It was 15 minutes of my life.
I like those bits though. I feel like they flesh out the characters and make these characters feel a lot more well-rounded than they do in previous chapters. It's part of why I love Shimosa so much.
They're very touching. They're very emotional. There were too many of them in comparison to the amount of fights.
But the fights in FGO are kind of meh.
The fights for me are what breaks up the sheer amount of reading. I don't like visual novels, remember?
Yes, I
I
know.
need the fights to break that up.
But I like little moments like Fumiko Taro, like having little, like my, like very subtle character moments about like where he's starting to put together the pieces of what's going off Kato Danzo. I like the build up on that shit.
It's not bad. I just needed more breaks.
I don't want to fight 50 wyverns again, though.
I might be the first person in the history of FGO to say this, but I actually would have liked a couple of random wyvern fights thrown in behind between some of those no battle nodes.
That's kind of the troubling balancing act here. You can't break up every 5 minutes of FGO with a bullshit fight because it just makes the bullshit fights feel lazy. It makes the bullshit fights it makes it feel like what's already a pretty bland battle system feel even more repetitive.
Yeah, but there were so many no battle nodes in Shimosa. There were so many. And yes, it was all very touching. I love the story of Shimosa. It really developed Musashi as a character. It really developed all of the characters as characters. In fact, I think it did the most amazing things for the heroic spirit sword masters because we got to see their like conflict in them between like that which they were forced to be and then the like begrudging admittal of what they had originally been and the struggle that was actually happening within them after being given the curses. But oh my God, was it too much reading to fight as a ratio? And maybe that's just because some of those reading sections were so long sometimes. Like even in the ones with fights. I mean, there were times where I was going like 15 to 20 minutes in a single node that was both reading and fighting because of how long it took. I mean, Jesus, I was getting through like two sections an hour. I think was my average. Maybe less. Because 16 sections, I think it took me longer than 8 hours to finish the chapter.
Oh, almost definitely. These chapters start getting ridiculous lengths. I want to say, like some of these that you could a lot of these FGO chapters are basically the length of short games.
It took me 18 hours to get through 16 sections.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's about a little more than an hour a section. That seems about standard for FGO.
Oh my fucking.
This isn't part one anymore. We're not eating it up with a bunch with like 50 billion filler bullshit fights anymore. We're actually trying to tell a story here with characters.
Hey chat. If I just stop if I just stop playing FGO now. I would just stop. Oh my God. Ah,
Like I hear your problem here, and again, all I can do is say, yeah, FGO is getting more and more visual novel like because the visual novel authors are the ones writing this, and while it is a game, this is a game targeted at a fan base that's largely comprised of visual novel readers. And at the end of the day, this is more gameplay in it than Witch on the Holy Night or Fate Stay Night have. That's for damn sure.
I suffer. I suffer for hot anime men.
Like, yeah, yes, I do understand, especially when you're reading it out loud on stream.
Yeah.
It's a lot,
And like, okay,
but
and
that's
then
arguably supposed to be the appeal of the genre.
yeah, and then, well, and I to a certain extent I get that, but it's a phone gotcha game. It doesn't need to be. I don't know. I and then like there was the one time I put like a little frowny face on my stream and you messaged me being like, "Hey, are you good?" I was like, "Yeah, it's fine. Like Shimosa's good. This isn't
Oh,
like
I was genuinely concerned that you were like really burning yourself out there. I That wasn't me like, why aren't you enjoying this story? That was me like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be so insistent on her reading this on stream. She seemed to enjoy Seraph and Agartha reading off screen a lot more than this.
look, it like reading off screen is arguably more enjoyable for me because it's the easier option, right? Like that's just giving me the easy out to read it like a novel rather than experiencing it as a visual novel, you know? And that's not necessarily a bad thing if that's what I need to do to get through some of these longer chapters especially. But like Shimosa's good. Like don't for all that I'm complaining here, Shimosa is good. Like I'm not denying that. It's fantastic. It's got honestly some of the best character development. I think this is right up there with Shinjuku for me right now. I mean, this is way better than Agartha or Seraph. Like miles better than both of them. Honestly, like the only thing holding me to Shinjuku being better than this is I just really like certain elements of Shinjuku. Um,
Well, I think you were much more familiar with the characters, and those are
yeah,
characters that you were going to vibe with more, no matter what. Like you were always going to vibe with Moriarty more than a lot of these Japanese characters, many of whom you've never heard of in your life, or if you have heard of them, it's been mostly ancillary or through
yeah.
like their representation in say Naruto or something.
Yeah. So like, don't get me wrong, Shimosa's fantastic. I mean, great character development, like wonderful emotional writing. It just this is the growing pains of me moving from part 1 to part 1.5. That's what this is. It's just the growing pains. Just wait, we'll get into the Lost Belts, and all of a sudden I'm going to be telling you how great the pacing in Shimosa was in comparison to I've seen that graph. I've seen that graph.
You know the best part? There's at least one or two chapters that are multiple parters that have separate bars on that graph.
Yeah, I've
Like
seen it.
Atlantis Olympus is split up on that graph. I think all three parts of Lost Belt 6 are split up on that graph.
Yeah, like I said, this is the growing pains. I will have this same ratio based complaint that will make Shimosa look like it had a great ratio in a year when I get to some of that stuff.
I think where we're running into problems now is we're trying to make sure we're reading the chapters people want to see on stream. But guess what the chapters people are going to want to see that are going to have the most impactful large moments, character wise,
Yeah.
emotional wise.
I yeah, on that note, obviously, because I'm sure we'll have a fair few people watching this video. I'm not going to be reading every single like story chapter after part 1.5 going forward. That's not going to happen. Some of these are so long that at the rate that I'm streaming them, I could never get caught up if I was to read them in this way. Like we're just gonna have to make some calls going forward into part 2 and the Lost Belts. Point blank period.
So I guess last couple times we've gone through like the major character. I know this is already a really bulky episode, but all of our FG off the shelves have been.
I know, but I'm on a time limit this morning.
I know. So let's try to get through the at least the heroic sword masters and then our main cast here. Uh, how did your like what do you think? Like, I know Musashi has never been a servant that you've been particularly crazy about since the reacts. What are your thoughts now? You said earlier that you thought the character development was really good on Musashi here, right?
Yeah, it's great. Very emotional. Lots of context. Musashi's still not my favorite. Like, she's
Yeah.
still not my favorite. I'm never gonna want to like go for pulling her or anything. But I think they did a really good job developing Musashi as a I think they did a really good job at developing Musashi outside of the historical context of like Miyamoto Musashi, right? Because
Hmm.
Fate's Musashi is obviously very different, being like this world hopping girl who kind of drifts in and out of things. They did a really good job.
That's good. Okay. I
For all that I bitched about those no battle nodes where she's talking to the sky but addressing Onui and Tasuke or Tasuke specifically, it's not a problem. Those are very cute. They're very sweet. They're very sentimental. I like that.
I think the bit that sold me on Musashi when I first read this is when Inshun, someone who traveled with them for a bit, is just slaughtering a village, and her priority is making sure that Onoi and Tasuke can't see or hear what's going on,
Yeah.
because this would actually traumatize a child.
Yeah, which by the way, those children absolutely knew what was going on. There's
Yes,
no
yeah.
way that they remain blissfully ignorant for the entirety of this.
Well, their mother was literally killed in front
Yeah.
of them. Like they know
Yeah.
what's going on, but the
Yeah.
I do like that Musashi still tried to do as much as she could
Yeah.
to preserve their childhoods.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna speed run through as much of
Well,
the cast as we
I
can.
don't know Lord Inshen yet. I don't know Tomoe Gozen yet. I don't know I think are those the only two well, I didn't know technically yeah,
Mochizuki Chiyome.
Mochizuki Chiyome or Yagyu Munenori technically. Um so that and I'm sure that all of their writing was very sweet and very relevant to their characters, but I don't know them yet. And I can appreciate how sweet and relevant that their internal struggles were. I can't really make commentary on them though.
All right.
Yeah. So that leaves Rider, Berserker, and Caster of the Heroic Spirit Sword Masters, right?
Oh, there's a couple of our supporting I just wrote.
Well,
We don't need to
yeah,
spend a
but
lot of
you
time on them, but like
I know,
Fuma
I'm just
and Muramasa here.
yeah, but I'm talking about the Heroic Spirit Sword Masters. I
Yes.
specified that. That leaves
Yeah.
three. Yeah. Which I mean 2.5? 2.5? Abe no Seimei is a name I certainly didn't know, but he looks suspiciously familiar.
So, what are your thoughts on Fuma and Donzo's dynamic here, since they're kind of separate from the Swordsmaster deal?
Wait, so are we talking about the Sword Masters right now, or are we talking about the supporting characters? Because I
Let's
thought we
start
were
with our
talking about
main
the Sword
cast, and then
Masters.
we'll talk touch on our on the Swordmasters we can do.
Oh, okay, I thought we were going to do that the other way around.
I already got to Musashi. She's not a Swordmaster.
Yeah, but Musashi's like our main character, point blank,
Yeah.
period. You know? Um, Danzo and Kotaro were nice. I think I'm enjoying having a rotating cast of people coming with me from Chaldea rather than it always being MASH. I know that's gonna piss off MASH fans, but it's nice to have someone else as like our main sort of like person who's coming with us. And Fuma obviously fills that role here technically. Not Musashi, but Fuma fills that role specifically. Um, so it was nice to see more about Fuma. I don't have a lot of. I feel like there wasn't a whole lot of context on Fuma in the original Reacts video because obviously there's not a ton of like historical precedents there.
Hmm.
And so like Fuma for me was kind of like this character exists. Um, but it was nice to see like the development of Fuma's character throughout the story. Same thing with Danzo. I like the conflict in her as a character, you know?
I like that she's like, "Hey, everyone, I have something to reveal." Oh yeah, you're a spy, right? You're spying on
Yeah.
us this time. I love that moment.
But it was important. It was an important moment to her character because her revealing it is like you know, the sort of oh God, what's the word? Like the final piece in her conflict, you know? Like she's made a decision now. She's no longer conflicted.
I thought that moment was very like shown in anime, like, "Oh yeah, we knew you were on the enemy team this entire time, but you're one of us."
It's not like it was hidden.
No, she was very bad at hiding it.
It's not like everyone didn't know. I knew.
It's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, obvious bad guy Yagyu is the one that sent her with you, and she's not being
Yeah.
And she's very suspicious. Yeah, I wonder if she's secretly supposed to be spying on us.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, yeah.
But I do love that the story got to lampshade that a bit. Uh, and then obviously the last member of our supporting cast.
Gramps is good. Gramps is great. Gramps is Gramps.
I love my Boomer Shiro.
He's good. I think the translation team did a great job of really leaning into like the verbal distinctions that would that really made him feel like an old character.
It's hilarious to like have these like those like the writing style of an older character, like
And this
having
man
memory
has
problems.
abs.
Yeah.
This man is like like a 22-year-old who goes to the gym. This is objectively an attractive young man. Like y'all didn't even turn his hair gray. You could have at least done that.
They picked the young Shiro form, not
Yeah.
the old like or not even the old like the white-haired more archer looking form.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, then let's get into the sword masters you do know then. Starting with let's start with Shooten and Raiko. Their arc was
Yeah.
kind of together, so
Yeah. Um well, shooting certainly had me questioning the most my choice to read certain things out loud that are now clippable on the internet. Um because now me saying those lines is out there and clippable. Um
I love that Shooten is like pretty intentionally talking like talking like that, being very suggestive, while in actual story she is literally rearranging the main character's like
yeah,
innards,
innards. Uh-huh. Remember, lie
and
back
they're in
and do it for Chaldea.
excruciating pain.
Lie back and do it for Chaldea.
Like she's fucking with them, trying
Yeah, it's
to
psychotic. I kind of like
yeah.
it. No, I love it. It's psychotic.
It's
Obviously, that was great.
it was also
Um,
one of the rare scenes where you actually got to read the main character's inner monologue.
yeah,
Like you open with that, oh, we've changed perspectives. No, they actually wrote the main character for once.
yeah. Um, it was really funny, I think, between Shooten and Raiko because Raiko obviously displayed the like active dissonance between like her as Minamoto no Raiko and her as Berserker of Kala or not Berserker, Rider of Kala Sutra Hell.
Hmm.
Whereas Shooten Doji felt like, I mean, the way that they wrote her was that she intentionally felt like she fell 100% into Berserker of Samgata Hell, but then to kind of come across the reversal at the very end where you find out that actually Shooten Doji was like actively going against the curse of annihilation, seemingly very easily, to be honest, like not even dropping a sweat at it, while Raiko's the one who's like struggling like the other characters we've seen so far. Was fun.
I love it because it makes sense that Shooten being like this big demon king would have walked in there and been like, "No, I'm actually just as fucked up, but also I'm
Yeah,
going to be fucked up while I'm also like organizing for your downfall."
yeah, yeah,
Because like unlike the other sword masters, Shooten never shows anything that's out of character for what you would expect for Oni Shooten from her actual life and how she behaves normally.
yeah,
Despite being a berserker and a sword master, she is largely just Shooten.
yeah, yeah. Which is also sets her apart from pretty much the rest of the heroic swords masters because arguably the rest of them are facing these conflicts, that are written and shown out for us. You're right, Raiko and children, and then the others that I can't speak as much on, but was made very obvious by like the reading I was doing that there was an internal conflict there, you
Hmm.
know. Well, with the exception of one.
We'll get into that one in a second, I'm pretty sure. Are there any so obviously Raiko Shoot was it literally just those two and then the I know there's two more. Well, let's cover the less interesting one first, though he's the even though he's kind of supposed to be our big bad. Amakusa Shiro Tokisada, the
Oh,
sorcerer.
yeah.
this is like
Ah,
one of my one few negative elements here.
I
I'll
actually
jump in.
think they shit the bed a little with him.
Like it's cool in concept, and I like him as a foil to Musashi, but he's just not like they're like trying to obscure him for so long that when he's
Yeah.
finally there, it's like, oh, it's Amakusa, neat. And then they don't. He doesn't have a lot of buildup. Like he's not out there massacring people. You don't have as many scenes of him being as delightfully evil as
Yeah.
another character.
No, honestly, I firmly believe that they shouldn't have hidden his identity to begin with. Like, we should have always known that it was Amakusa Tokisada, because we kept getting mentions of the Shimabara rebellion all the way through. So if we had
Hmm.
just known that it was Amakusa Tokisada, then I think that would have elevated the story with all the mentions of the Shimabara rebellion all the way through and the introduction of Yagyu. Because I think if we'd known that it was him, that we what? Sorry, not Yagyu. Tajima no Kami.
That's Yagyu.
Oh, okay. So then why'd
Yeah.
you give me a weird look?
No, I didn't. I didn't mean to give you a lyric look if I gave you a weird look.
Oh,
But my eyes
um,
just do something. You can't always assume I'm judging you.
but that's your natural default setting.
It's wild that you think that. Like now I'm judging it.
Yeah, yeah. Because if we had just known that it was Amakusa Tokisada, I actually think that would have made Yagyu Munenori more believable when he tries to pretend that he's on our side, and it would have made his turning in the end even better as a betrayal.
Like imagine if there was any point, and this isn't not
Because
like
if we had known it was Amakusa Tokisada, we would never have assumed that Yagyu was on his side. Never.
imagine if you had like a scene very early on where Amakusa was more of the public facing
Yeah.
figure, like the one telling people they're going to die.
Yeah. Like we would never have held on to the fact that Yagyu was so fucking suspicious the
It's dis
whole way through.
it's disappointing because when you think about his plan, like Amakusa Shirotoki Sada's plan in this,
Mhm.
he's kind of just Dracula from the Castlevania
Yeah.
series. He's
Yeah.
like, I am pissed off at how
And
everyone ruined my life. I'm going to kill everybody and destroy the world in the name of evil.
well, and if you had revealed him from the beginning, right, then you could have given him more monologues about the horrors that he lived through at Shimabara, which would have made his choices even more like understandable. I don't know. I think revealing him closer to the beginning and then having him actively participate in the story, right, as Amakusa Shirotoki Sada would have made Shimosa significantly better because I think it would have obfuscated Munenori more, right? Because he was very suspicious the whole fucking way through. Right? Like they were not hiding the fact that he was suspicious, but I would have been a lot less suspicious of him if I had known that it was Amakusa Shiro Tokisada behind
So they'd be like,
everything.
oh, it makes sense why he's so gung ho because this man
Yeah.
should be dead, and
Yeah.
this is his personal project. Was part he took part in the Shimabara rebellion.
Yeah. And also by not revealing Amakusa Shiro Tokisada, I think a lot of the comparisons to the Shimabara Rebellion feel like they're just comparing it to the closest recent event that was terrible, you know?
Hmm.
Like they would have had even more significance when making the comparison if they had revealed him earlier. And I realized that was because the whole all of the hints to the Shimabara Rebellion were supposed to be hints to Tokisada being behind everything. But retrospectively, while I understand that, I think story-wise it would have made more sense to just reveal him and then let those mentions further the reasoning for him being behind everything.
Like,
I think in this case, by trying to keep it so tightly under wraps, you've actually undermined his actual reasoning for doing this and like the emphasis and his pain as a character.
yeah, I feel like this is a problem they probably tripped into because Amakusa is from a previous series. They're like, well, we can't like, his reveal as a character. We can't make the focal point of the chapter because we know Amakusa's deal. So bringing in this vengeful Amakusa, it's like, oh, it kind of feels like we're reusing a sprite here. Where they wanted to treat it like a plot twist. It just didn't work.
Yeah.
That said, the reason why it doesn't necessarily bring the chapter down that much is because he's not in that much of the chapter.
Yeah, he's
Instead,
largely irrelevant.
the villain everyone remembers as the face of this chapter, as the main threat, the one who steals the show in every scene he's in, is Abe no Seme. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Master of Limbo or Ashia Doman. Abe no
Call
Seme. Do you
call
remember
back.
Abe no Seme Seki?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Call back to when we were doing the review of the Seraph section, and I mentioned that a character like Ashia Doman would have been a really good addition to the lineup of the villains in Seraph, and you were like, no, 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 hold on to that.
yeah, yeah. Doman is a treat in this chapter. He is just so delightfully evil. Like, I
Yeah.
love him because he's irredeemably a
It's
horrible, horrible person.
it's the reddest of red flags, but let me tell you, boy, do I like the color red in this context. You know? Like, I love it. He is delectably disgusting.
Like, everyone in this chapter has good reason to hate him. And
I
he's not evil for anything more than the love of the game.
I also love the straight up I think it was Fuma at the end, right? It was either Fuma or Muramasa who's like, you know, if Abe no Seimei is even your name, you know? Like one of them drops a line like that near the very end where he's like, I don't actually think you're Abe no Seimei, but I am not gonna argue with you in this context.
I just
And
love
then
it.
his little like coming back at the very end in the epilogue with his little evil plans.
It's like, oh yeah, no. This chapter was there to make him a hateable villain with the knowledge that he's coming back in the future.
Now, yeah, so Ashia Doman, 200 out of 10. Fantastic. Love him. Um, Controversial opinion about a different servant. And I want to clarify, this is not because of my crash out. I I would have rather had Musashi and Sasaki, right? And have their little fight from the very end. I would have rather had that happen in a separate interlude than here. I don't think that they used Sasaki Kojiro in an effective way in this chapter. I don't think he should have been there. I know that's going to be a hot take. I think it would have been better off in an interlude
I
or
get what
something like the Musashi trial quest.
I get what you're saying, but also and because Sasaki Kojiro is not a major part of the story at all. He gets like mentioned and shows up a couple times to be hinted at, but he doesn't really do anything to advance the overarching plot at all, and is just there uh, um, to get into a fight with Musashi at the very end.
And I
But
love that fight with Musashi at the very end.
I don't feel like that fight was necessarily supposed to feel like it was advancing or culminating the story. It was supposed to culminate Musashi's character arc, and I don't. The Musashi trial quest itself, I'm already actually not a fan of the fact that that's like they establish Musashi there, introduce us to her, and then you have to. If you don't read that, you jump into it and you're missing several key parts. I feel like it'd be doing too much to cut out both the beginning and the ending of like her human story, like or like her journey by
Yeah, but
segregating
picture
out the Kojiro part.
I don't know. I don't think I liked where the Kojiro part fell in this. It just felt like it was an it almost felt unrelated, right? Like throwing it in at the end. It felt like they just needed to end her human life, and so we introduce Kojiro, and then have him be completely irrelevant for the entirety of the chapter. Keep that in mind. Like he's introduced very early and then irrelevant and unnamed for almost the entirety of the chapter, right? Only to come in at the very end for a fight where you know exactly what's going to happen, you know?
I
I
think
maybe it's not that it doesn't belong here, but the way that it was done is wrong. Something about it, like, don't get me wrong, I love the fight. I think it's one of the best written parts of the entire chapter, but I don't like where it is, or I don't like the buildup that led to it being where it is. Something about it being here in the way that it is feels like an afterthought or like something that wasn't given enough.
I think
I don't know.
I feel like it's kind of hard to not have that be the very ending though, because Musashi's journey really is ultimately her becoming actually Musashi, like going through the full arc of like learning the void, like the
Mhm.
method, the void style through the Book of the Five Rings kind of deal. And when you're thinking about it in a thematic or character growth sense, it's kind of like a this is the only way things could have ever ended for Musashi was culminating in that duel with Kojiro, because that's thematically the final obstacle of reaching her goal. I get it from a story sense how out of place it felt, but for me, it's just a little too perfect character and thematic wise for me to have a huge problem with it.
You know what would have made more sense for me? Okay, I think you mentioned something about this before in other stuff, but you know how apparently in like some later chapters once you get through like the main part of the chapter extra stuff opens up inside the chapter? That's what I think it should have been, personally.
Because that extra stuff's almost never story. The only time it's ever been story is like a little like fan servicey filler thing. And I don't think this is fan service. This is like the culminating moment of Musashi's journey to this point.
Okay, but then make Sasaki Kojiro more of a figure. Don't Yeah, do something to develop it more from the beginning, you know? Don't just drop him in at the very end.
I think this is a point we're probably going to have to agree to disagree on ultimately.
That's fine by me.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna I look, I'm not gonna sit here and fight you on this because I know that this is gonna be highly dependent on every individual person reading it. I didn't like it because I felt like there was something more to be added there, something more to be developed. I'm not sure how to develop that. I don't know how to develop something like that, like how that would work in the context of how FGO plays and reads. I just think there needed to be something more.
Yeah. I don't know. If there's an element of the chapter that I was less of a fan of, it was the use of servants that weren't to fill out, like not every human had this, but like some humans had their places replaced by servants. Namely, it was Tomo with some vague allusion to the fact that Dantes may have been there, but may not have been.
He
That might
was
have just been.
absolutely
Nah, he was
there.
there. He was 100% there.
Dantes was 100% there. Otama, maybe not. Dantes, that was the Count of Monte Cristo. That was confirmed
But then
twice.
then he did jack all during the story.
That's fine. I don't care. Dantes is great. I don't care.
Yeah, I felt like they needed to do more Dantes, and I kind of would have just preferred they had given Otama her own model or her own design, even if it drew reference to Tomo instead of just reusing one of the Tomomo designs.
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed when I realized we weren't going to actually be getting Tamamo.
Yeah,
But then again, I also Kiyohime was also just kind of.
but at least Kiyohime had a unique that was still real. That was supposed to still be that version of Kiyohime, and it was supposed to be part of illustrating how that timeline was different. And she did play a story role, unlike Dantes.
Dantes played a role in the final fight. Remember?
Did he?
Yeah, there was a part where like one of the other people came up and they were like, "Yeah, I came across this missionary who told me to do this thing." I forget who it was, but it did.
That's some like Ant-Man Luis bullshit right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think Dante's deserved a little bit better than that. Like that, to me, Dante's felt shoehorned in a bit just because it was so similar to Prison Tower with what was going on.
I liked it.
Um, but yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't have that much more. I could draw a fun reference to the like. I could draw a fun reference to the fact that this is like this entire storyline is based off a samurai movie where the a bunch of like historical or legendary samurai were summoned by an evil guy to go kill the emperor, which was the story that inspired Fate's Stay Night, and then they wrapped back around and made a chapter kind of based on that again. I think that's cool, but that's like just a fun bit of trivia. There's not much I don't know unless you have thoughts on that, but
Not
yeah, I didn't
really.
think so. But yeah, I think that's about all I've got for the moment.
I like Shimousa.
It's one of my favorite chapters. Like, yeah, it's wordy.
For all
It's
that
wordy,
for all
but
that I say there were things that could be made better, like Shiro Tokisada and, in my opinion, Sasaki Kojiro. It is genuinely one of the best written things so far in the entire game, right? Because, like, part one is not incredibly well written, point blank, period. Like, I liked Solomon, but it's not incredibly well written. Shinjuku's really the first time that we get like a well written story. So it's nice to see that so far per capita our quality to chapter rating is going up.
what is it right now? We're at
Two
three
out
out
of
of.
four.
You liked Seraph?
Yeah, but Seraph is a more of a tie-in and less of a unique story.
Well, then we're 2 out of 4 total, including Salem. That mean we're 2 out of 3 with what we've done so far. Then
Yeah, I'm just assuming Salem's gonna be good, so it'll be 3 out of 4.
bold assumption to me. No, we'll get there when we get there. I'm not gonna poison the well with my early thoughts on Salem, but um. So yeah, we're next time. Yeah, we'll be back with Salem next time. Next time we'll be
Mhm.
back with Salem, finishing off technically the like the main epic of Remnants. So yeah, I other than that, I don't know where this is at. I don't know where that in the schedule. You know where that in the schedule?
How's your gotcha been, Knick-Knack?
I haven't had any bad gotcha experiences lately. My bad. I had a bad knickknack fucked myself over experience recently.
Yeah, so how did you do that exactly?
So FGO has a 100 spots if you like. You know how I store your servants that you don't know in your second archive.
Yeah.
I don't really need to do that for that purpose. I never put servants in the second archive, but I'll put experience in the second archive. And I'm saving experience right now so that I can power level my Ushiwakamaru when they have a double EXP campaign coming about in JP. I realize
Because you're
I don't have a lot
grailing
of.
them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of room in my second archive, though it's only 100. You can expand that for monoprisms. So I go to the monoprism shop. It's in Japanese. I don't know what it says. I'm like, okay. Oh, that's how many they're at? I'll just buy all the available ones. That should be, that'll expand out my second archive. I have a lot of monoprisms. I should be able to cover this. I look at my monoprism amount. You have 5 monoprisms left. I'm like, oh, I didn't max out my second archive space. I just spent all of my monoprisms. And now
On?
I'm out of monoprisms
What
that I
did
can
you get for them though?
second archive space. I could store more EXPs away instead of
Oh.
filling out my main storage.
Oh. And you
Yeah,
didn't max your second archive
you
still?
don't have a second archive.
Oh, it can just expand indefinitely.
They add a bunch of they add more expansions periodically. It's just
Uh,
like I'm at like 400 something slots now, and that's still not the most you can have. But
okay.
yeah, no, I fucked myself over, which means I need to grind for monoprisms pretty actively if I want to keep buying tickets and EXPs in the shop. And that's not forgetting the fact that I've got grand duels coming out, which I want teapots to increase my bond unless I want to spend twice the amount of time grinding bond out during those duels.
Boys and girls, this is why I don't spend my mana prisms.
I fucked up. I
You
really
really
fucked
did.
up this time.
How many did you spend?
I had over 3,000.
Oh, yeah, my mana prisms just dipped from like over 3,000 to like 2,500, but that's because I did the monthly buy
Mine
last
dipped
night.
from way over 3,000 to 5.
Yeah, no, I got all the Blaze of Wisdoms, I got the summon tickets and everything. And then I was pretty much done. I did spend a fair chunk of pure prisms yesterday.
So yeah,
Yeah,
as a
I probably
result,
spent like 50 or more pure prisms.
because I need monoprisms and I'm not making the game more miserable for myself because I made a stupid fucking error. I'm punishing myself financially. I'm gonna do a whaling stream because gacha rolling gives you easy monoprisms. I should get about 1,500 for the amount I plan to spend on this game. And then I'll also be able to burn any 3-star servants I get because I have all of them maxed out, except for Serenity, apparently. For some reason, I just never finished maxing out my NP levels on Serenity and just kept burning her extra copies. I don't know why.
Hmm.
But that's a tangent. That's how the FGO gacha is going to be purposely bad coming up for me, but this is the result. This is the consequences of my own actions.
Beautiful. We love it. Stunning. 10 out of 10.
All right, now we should outro it though. So yeah, I don't know what's next. Do you know what's next, Saki?
Nope.
I'll see you next time.